Parashat BADMIDBAR. Parashat BADMIDBAR opens, of course, Sefer, the book of BADMIDBAR. How do we say BADMIDBAR in English?
In the desert?
No. Which book is that?
Deuteronomy?
No, that's Dvarim.
Numbers.
Numbers. Exactly, numbers. Why? Because it starts with a request of Hashem. I would say, if you look at this parasha, this weekly portion, it's I hate to say it, but it's kind of boring. Why? Because it really gives us all kind of like statistical details, which are quite dry. That has to do with the nation, with Am Yisrael. And the parasha opens with these words, "Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe," right? God spoke to Moses, and He says, "Seu et rosh kol adat bnei Yisrael lemishpachotam," right? B'mispar shemot. In other words, count them. Start counting. Kol zachar legulgelotam miben 20 shana v'mala. Any male from the age of 20 and up. Kol yotzei tzava b'Yisrael. Anybody who is eligible to go to the army, has to be in that count. Tifkedu otam l'tzivotam. You should count them to the units or whatever it is. So the question is, I have a few questions. The question number one is as follows: why does God need that Moshe will count Am Yisrael for him? First of all, God doesn't know how to count. Why does He need us to count? Please count it for me. It doesn't make sense. More than that, if God is really endless, what difference does it make to Him? What's the number of what does it need to do with census? What good does it do to Him? It doesn't make sense. And also, the expression that is used, He doesn't say count them. He says Seu roshchem. Seu roshchem, in other words, lift your head up and then count. And we say count. Anybody says hi to us over there?
We got Sam, Yisrael, Trina.
All right, guys. Sam, Yisrael, Trina, and everybody else. Welcome on board. Too bad you can join us here and actually have this wonderful chulent that Idan had made us. But Idan today is on his way to Florida. So, all right, beseder. So, it really doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Say count, and again, as we said, why do you need to count? What's the point of that? The Zohar on this portion explains, among other things, that when God created Adam, He made him in a form that would represent creation on this earth and creation in the heavens. Now I'm going to warn you, this is a very, today, somewhat, most of it, Kabbalistic, mystical approach. So if you don't like it, still watch it. It won't hurt you. So, in other words, he was included of all. Everything was in Adam. So, if you look at it this way, it means that Adam was created, he was the peak of creation. Of course, we are talking about before the sin of the apple. There's nobody Chinese there, right? Right. You know how we know that Adam and Eve were not Chinese?
The curse.
No, because if they were Chinese, they would eat the snake, not the apple. But that's anyway, not nice. Anyway, the sin that Adam had caused that in a way he was shattered into thousands of fragments, and those fragments in a way are us. We are those fragments of Adam HaRishon, and when I say us, I mean it's Jews and Gentile, all together. It doesn't, in terms of humans, that we are. Now, in a way, we are all parts of Adam. We're all parts of Adam. And if we are all parts of one whole, what is the sense of counting the tribes and still having it divided into tribes? It doesn't really make sense. For example, Moshe Rabbeinu should integrated all the tribes, all the groups of the families into one homogeneous nation, and we're done with it. We'll be done with it, and they will be perfect. Immediately as they came out of Mitzrayim, came out of Egypt, guys, no more tribes, everybody one nation under God, goodbye and good luck, right? And it doesn't. However, the secret that is hidden in here teaches us that every community and every congregation of a human community, not just Jewish, a human community, has to be built and has to include many parts and many communities that are different from one another. And only a collection of particles, of different particles, could actually make a whole unit again. In other words, if you look at a puzzle, if I'm going to give you a puzzle that has, let's say, a nice large puzzle of 1,000 pieces, but all the pieces are the same, you are never going to be able to match the puzzle. The same thing here. We need to bring back that puzzle, the picture that was, we need to bring it back again. That's why it needs to be completely different. So from here you could sit down and eat, please. Yeah, sit here. No, Yudan is not here. From here we could learn that according to Kabbalah, every neshama, what do you mean you know? Sensei, you have to eat a little bit. Idan is going to be very sad. Just a little bit. Tatale. Look, you look skinny as it is. Yeah, you're never going to get a black belt if you're going to have just give him one serving. That's it. Here, that's it. You see? You only serve just a little bit. It's good for you. So now, every neshama, every soul is a unique divine spark. Each soul in this world. And that count that we are going through in this weekly portion is not just a technical action of counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, but rather a revelation of spiritual identity and uniqueness. And it tries to tell her something. In other words, every soul is being examined, being checked, being written. In other words, God told us to take inventory of all the souls that are there, and based on this count, it's being assigned and designated a special place and a job in that holy encampment of Am Yisrael. That's why we can allow to give up any Jew. We have to try as much as we can. We have to try as much as we can. Both the Ramban and the Or HaChaim hint to us that the concept of Se'ur Rosh means lift your chin up, is really an expression of recognition of the value and the internal essence of each and every one of us in Am Yisrael. And according to Kabbalah, also every tribe, every shevet, and every person in that tribe represents a certain sphera and a certain aspect in that sphera. That sphera is those Kabbalistic layers that we have in terms of the Etz Chaim, and represents something also in the upper world. From the reflection, as it comes from the reflection of the sferot, of the upper sferot, which they are, of course, the Keter, the Chokhmah, the Binah, etc., 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 until we get to the whole structure of what we call Etz Chaim, the tree of life, which is this famous Kabbalistic, logo that they have, like this, structure like this. I mean, maybe somebody should make patches, and everybody likes patches, so put patches of the Kabbalah. That's not a bad idea. Now since we talk about the encampment of the Jews, let's look at this a little bit more in depth, if you may. We know that, and that's what we try to do. I mean, some of us, before we pray in the morning, there is a special, certain Siddurim, not all Siddurim, but certain Siddurim have of course, if you have to rush to go to work and, it's very hard to do it, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. But if you have the time, and right now it's going to be a holiday, so maybe something you should do before the tefillah in Shavuot. Some of you would stay up, not all of you would stay up, which is okay, by the way. At that point, I would like to take the opportunity and tell you that if it's going to be, because I think sunrise is in New York at least is about 5:30 in the morning, and that's where you have to say Kriyat Shema, so you can't really daven, you can't really pray before. And in Florida, it's 6:30. If that's going to cause you to not to say Kriyat Shema with a full intent, if it's going to cause you to rush into the tefillah, not to enjoy prayer, and so on and so forth, don't stay up. Don't stay up, because this is more important than staying up at night and like having if you want to get together with the guys in shul, not a problem. Arrange a nice barbecue and some kind of a fire pit, get some, whatever you want, beers, whatever it is, play some music, learn some Torah. That's a nice get together. But staying in shul awake is not a get together. So let's put things in perspective. I want to take this opportunity to actually tell you that, because today I feel, somebody told me that in a shul in Israel, they bring in this Dr. Ahmed Khalaili or something like this to give a lecture on Shavuot night to people, to explain to them about organ donations and so on and so forth. In other words, things are getting a little bit out of hand in terms of like how much of the production we really need, and the essence is not there. So let's go back to basics. We need to go back to basics. So what I was trying to tell you, in some Siddurim, there's actually it's like in plain eyesight, but most people miss it, a special meditation that a person should do before preparing himself. It's a contemplation meditation based on different parts of the body with different combinations of God's name to actually meditate, to prepare yourself to be able to be worthy to call yourself a chariot for the Shekhinah into the world. That really changes the whole way you move through the day, what and how you do throughout the day. So, if you want to do it, but just, if you do it right. Now, so that exists also as us as individuals, to make ourselves an appropriate chariot vehicle for the holy presence of Hashem to come throughout, we will be the vehicle to bring this to this. And the same thing in the desert, Am Yisrael was a chariot for the Shekhinah to go in through the desert. So let's just look a little bit like this. So when they were arranged around the Mishkan is the tabernacle, when they had each tribe was in its own place, and it wasn't some kind of like an arbitrary arrangement, but rather a reflection of what they call the Merkava, the upper chariot, where how God dwells within in the upper world. So is the encampment of Israel was a reflection of or a portrait of those sferot and those spiritual words. So for example, Shevet Yehuda was on the east, and that represents Chesed. I'm just going to go briefly to that, and then we're going to go a little deeper into that. So Shevet Yehuda was to the east, and that was corresponding with Chesed, with kindness. Reuven was to the south. Reuven was the Bechor. Reuven was to the south. So therefore, that's connected Gvura, right? Heroism or might. Shevet Ephraim, the tribe of Ephraim, was to the west, which represent Tiferet. Shevet Dan was to the north, which represents Malchut. And the Mishkan, the tabernacle, was in the center, corresponding with Yesod and corresponding with the Shekhinah. And so we see that this is not just a bunch of nomads going like herds, like Mongols, whatever, in the desert, just going all like a big chaos, like we see sometimes, right? But it's rather a walking or mobile temple, because the temple in Jerusalem, where today unfortunately there is the mosque, to remind everybody, is a Jewish place occupied by Arabs. Then Arabs take up everything. And which is very funny, I found that among Native Americans, the indigenous people of the United States, tremendous appreciation to the Jews in Israel, especially now because we don't say it enough, we are the indigenous people of the land of Israel. Not them Arabs. So it was as much as it was in Jerusalem, so is the camp of the Jews when they went to the desert a holding place for God to come in. That's why it had to be in a perfect order. Only then God comes in, which is very important to understand. When there is chaos, usually God says, you know what, clean up the place, then I'll come. And you can't think, well and so on when there is chaos around you. And that's why you need to have everything organized and neatly organized. As the Rambam writes, he writes, Dira na'am meyashevet da'ato shel adam. When your apartment or your house is clean and neat, your mind is at rest. You can think if it's a chaos, that's the way it is. So now, let's look a little bit deeper into that. So in the west, we have the tribe of Ephraim together with Menashe and Binyamin, and that corresponds with the Sfera of Tiferet. Tiferet is the stomach, that's the middle section. And the west is a place of where the day ends, right? Where the day ends. And that is basically a unification of the light with the darkness. And of course, Ephraim and Menashe were the descendants of Yosef, and they represents balance. In other words, the combination or the connection between Chesed and Din, and that creates the balance. That's a balance point, of course, because Yosef was the tzaddik, and that's again another important point that we're going to maybe talk about later. But Yosef is the tzaddik, so Yosef corresponds with this midah as well. Tiferet, which is the balance, right, is the central sphera that draws the abundance that comes from the upper sferot and brings it down to the lower sferot, right? And that's why it's important to have that, because a very important concept in a society is justice. As it tells us, tzedek tzedek tirdo. A society that is not built or established on justice is going to be an unbalanced society, and therefore everything is going to get, out of hand. One of the things that you could see, and I'm really concerned, not just because the rise of anti-Semitism and what we as Jews have to suffer here in the United States, but I'm also concerned, and that's the stupidity of people that simply don't understand. When there is such an injustice that it's done here, and such an outburst of anti-Semitism, that in a way will deteriorate the American society as well. Because it's not justice. And that's a big concern for us. And you'll see it. The more anti-Semitism, the more American society would actually fall apart and will go down. So that somebody should wake up over there and smell the hummus, because things are getting a little out of whack here. Now, to the north, we have the tribe of Dan, together with Asher, the tribe of Asher, and the tribe of Naphtali. And that represents the Sfera of Malchut, kingship. Now, the north is usually the darker side of nature, of the four corners, right? If you want to get, for example, a good room that the light does not change, all the painters and artists always used to take the northern room, so the light is more stable there. It doesn't get so much light. If you want to see where usually moth grows, usually it grows on the north sides of the tree, not on any other side of the tree. And that's why I say usually. Now, it's considered to be less active, just like the Sfera of Malchut that received the Shefa, received the abundance, but it for itself does not generate anything of its own. It's just receiving. Shevet Dan is known as the Shofet, as the judgment, right? And that has to do with the side that receives all the time and represents the din, represents judgment. As we know, if Am Yisrael does not behave right, as the prophet tells us, mitzafon tipatach hara. From the north, bad will come. In other words, judgment. If you act inappropriately, bad things will come from the north. Now, that could be Turkey, that could be Russia, that could be whichever that will be. But we better get ourselves together. So that's the hint for that is there, and the reason for that is there. The center, of course, is the Leviim, the Levites, and the tabernacle inside, the Mishkan, and that corresponds with the Sfera of Yesod. The Leviim that were surrounding the Mishkan, and the center, of course, in the center of it, there is Aaron HaKohen, right? That's Yesod. That's the vessel, that's the pipe that brings the abundance from the upperwards down, all the way down to Malchut. And the Mishkan, is the heart of us. It's the heart of the encampment, as much as the temple in Jerusalem was the heart of the Jewish nation. The reason it's not because it's sanctified to Islam or Christianity. But for crying out loud, Jerusalem is not even mentioned once in the Quran, not even once. But it's just a matter to take the heart of the Jewish nation. We prayed for all these years to come back to Etzion. For some stupid political reason, they decided to give it to hand it over to the Arabs in 1967 because, unfortunately, some rabbis could not make up their mind and can see the future and what will happen to that. Right? Which is a mistake for us. Now, as much as the heart, this is the Yesod itself in the Etz Chaim that really connects the upper ones to the lower ones, and which is, a big lesson to us, a message for us, that internal order is a necessity in a world of chaos. And we need to be very organized, especially now that the world outside is chaotic. According to Kabbalah, when every part is in its appropriate and designated place, in other words, whether it's every sfera, every shevet, every tribe, and every person, then there is an internal harmony. And that internal harmony allows us to become a receptacle for the Shekhinah into this world. Am Yisrael in the desert, when it's arranged and it is connected to the heart, connected to the Mishkan, becomes a living chariot for the divine in this world. We are the one who carry the message of God in the world. And we need to be organized. We need to know exactly, and we can't give up on any Jew out there. As much so, and by the way, if it's true for a nation, it's true for you as an individual. In the macro and the micro, it's the same thing. It applies to the individual, and it applies to us as a congregation, and it applies to us as a nation as well. We need to be very well organized, all for one goal, all for the King, all for God. And as much as the forces of the spirit, of the nefesh, right, which is the chesed, gevurah, we said is a tiferet, and so on and so forth, act in a complete balance and in complete harmony with each other in their appropriate place, a person also should do so, and he could become as well a mishkan, a small temple, and a vessel for God in this world as well. And we need to understand that, you see, sometimes I'm torn. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I feel like, you know what, say, excuse me, driver, please stop. I want to get off the bus. Please, I want to get off. I'm sick and tired of this cab. I mean, New York City is obsessed with putting traffic lights, even when it's not needed. I cannot tell you how many traffic lights are in my neighborhood new that are just added. It's nuts.
Highways also.
It's out of their minds. I mean, it's crazy. Traffic lights, not cameras only. Traffic lights. Sometimes I say, you know what? I had enough. I want to get out of here. This is madness. Let me go into boondocks. Go somewhere in the mountains over there. I don't know whether it's Appalachia, or maybe it's somewhere in Wyoming. Maybe Texas even. I'm not just gonna go out there. Leave me alone. I had it. Hello, please, time out. I'm out of here. I want to do it. I'll tell you the truth. I am sick and tired of politics. I'm sick and tired of politicians. I want to get out of here, but I can't. The reason why I can't is because I choose not to. And the reason why I choose not to is because as a Jew, I need to be in a community. I need to be in a community. And non-Jew can really take his stuff and really go out there to go to Glacier Park, go to Whitefish, Montana, as far as I'm concerned, which is beautiful over there. It's a very nice place in terms of like fly fishing, great place to be in. Sky is blue.
Big Sky, Montana.
Big Sky, Montana. Yeah, Wyoming, North Dakota, all this. I mean, it's gorgeous places. But no can do, man. I need to have a community. I need to have a community. And the reason is very simple. Is because I cannot fulfill all my needs. I'm not talking from a selfish point, all by myself. I need to have a community to help me, to support me, that would allow me also to contribute into that. Just like a marriage. If you're looking for a marriage, marriage should basically be a vehicle, an instrument for you to give. Most people look at marriages as a way to get. As they say, there is evil love and there is true love. True love is when there is an unbroken partnership between a man, a woman, and God in between. At that point, it doesn't make a difference if your spouse is beautiful, if she's average, if she's sassy, or if he has six packs, those things don't make a difference. That's true love. Whatever you support one another and help one another. When we make decisions out of what we call evil love, there's a catastrophe that happens today here. Marriages break, infidelity, and so on and so forth. That's a problem. So is to our community. We need to be in a community that could help us and that we could help it. My son had a baby, 3 weeks ago. They have a meal train for his apartment. You have no idea until this Sunday. No, until this Monday, people were still sending them food because to share. They didn't cook it. He said, "Listen, I'm not cooking it." And people send me stuff, and some of the stuff is really amazing. But they made a list, and people sign up, and people send. That's what I call a community. That's one of the signs of a healthy community. Now, that community also needs to be very, very, how should I say it, colorful and should have a great variety in it. One of the problems that I had when I wanted to move back to Israel, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't find a community that I really wanted. At the beginning, I thought that I want a community with all Haredi people. The more Haredi, the better, and so on and so on. But soon I realized that it's not the case. I actually think that to go to an all Haredi neighborhood, or to all Anglo, you're going to Israel and you're standing with only English-speaking people. I mean, what did you have to go there? You could stay here in Queens. The more variety is in the community, the better the community will be. Therefore, I said, if I will have the merit again, because that window at the time was closed for me. I didn't jump into the window was closed. I hope that one day I'll get that zchut to actually live there. If I live there, I want to live in a community that has everybody. That has Haredim, they have, Sugi Kippah, they will have secular Jews there. Yes, I want my neighbors to be secular Jews as well. It's good for them. I'm okay. They're okay. We should be okay. There's not a problem. I live my life. You live your life. That's not a problem. That is the strength of a community. The greater variety, the better it is for a community. Now, in a community, and that's also a current problem in Israel, every individual, every segment of that community has a different job and possesses a different talent that is different and unique to him, different than his friends. That's why the Zohar teaches us the world was created when we are so different than one another in order for us to need one another. Look, what's his name? Idan does the chulent. I mean, he does a great job. Shamir does the videos. Yeah, I cannot do the videos. He does it. Eitan does the Instagram. This one does that. Yeah, right? Some people, the job is just to eat. That's okay. That's fine. That's a job too. Well, we need to eat, right? Somebody needs to eat. It is very important, therefore, not only to acknowledge the people, to acknowledge their importance. And that's why when you come to shul, the first thing you should do is, if you are a regular in a synagogue, you come to shul, you see somebody new, walk out to him and say, "Good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, how are you? Welcome. Come to our neighborhood. Come to our..." You see somebody, every shul there are those invisible people that nobody pays attention. And I'm sure that you could identify your invisible people there. Your job should be to go there every single day, to go and say, Shabbat Shalom, how are you? I haven't seen you in a long time. How's everything? Everything is okay? Just do it. You are recognizing not the individual making him feel good. You're actually recognizing the fact that he has a unique job that God has given him. The beauty of the greatness of God is that not only, as Jonathan said, not only every person is different, their voices are different. Everything is different. It's amazing. There haven't been two people that are exactly identical from the day of men first walked on this earth. We're all different. So a society like this is important, and in Israel they need to understand that as well. And so from that interest of needing to one another, we could learn that we should live in unity, and only then we could become one. Only then we could complete this beautiful puzzle that God has created. And then he says, okay, you want to be partners with me? Not a problem. Let me mess up this whole puzzle, and now you're going to put it together. Now each and every one of us is in charge of a piece, to bring his own piece, to put it into the puzzle table. The problem is that most people confuse between, as I told you many times, between unity and uniform. It's two different things. To most people, their ideal is that everybody is going to be like them, right? I mean, if you look, for example, at Islam, Islam wants everybody to be Muslim. And if you're not, well, we're going to hand you your hand. Judaism is not like this. That's why Judaism is not a missionary religion. We understand that there are different people. And they have different jobs. The Gemara talks about it. The Romans built bridges, this one did markets, and so on and so forth. Everybody has a different job. Everybody contributes to the Gemara in Avodah Zarah, the first paragraph of Avodah Zarah. Every nation has its own job. But nobody should be like you. It's terrible. In communism, that's what they tried to do. In the Soviet nation, that's what they tried to do. Erase the individual. Maoism was all based on that. Communism was based on that. Everybody was wearing the same clothes, the same thing. That's horrific. That's terrible. You should not judge people if they choose to wear a different color. I mean, what? The fact that someone wearing like a Bordeaux color shirt, that makes him less than me or more than me. Let's see, where's his shirt? It's all external. It's all external. And we need to understand that. We want everybody to believe what we believe and to think what we are thinking. And that's the problem that we have today in our society in terms of all this political correctness, what you could say, what you cannot say, what you can think and what you cannot think, and so on and so forth. And here is the chidush. Here is the new idea, the new concept that we have in this parasha. We are different than one another. Because this is how we created. And you know what? And this is the right and that's the good thing for us to do and for us to be. Different. Respectful, but different. It's good for us. It's good for humanity. It's good for us as a society, as a community, and as an individual. Now, the more eyes to see something, the more opinions, and so on and so forth. Chazal tells us, right? This is the recipe for the chokhmah, for wisdom to actually maintain itself, to sustain itself. We need this variety, right? And wisdom comes from arguments, from discussion, from putting things on the table and discussing things. When you force my hand behind my back and don't allow me to say what I think or what my belief is, right? That's when I'm feeling that you're being choking me. I'm feeling choked. I'm feeling oppressed, and I'm getting angry. And therefore, at that point, I'm going to do whatever I can in my power to sabotage you. Well, it doesn't work like that. We can't get anywhere like this. In a society that does not have any arguments, and people are afraid to speak or what they think or to stand for what they believe in, right? That's going to be a very, very, should I say it, stupid society. It's going to be a society, built on, let's just say in a nice language, morons. And that's what we are going today. Today, there's no more open discussions. It's either my way or the highway. This is a danger. It's a wake-up call for all of us. Not only as Jews, also as Americans, as citizens of this society. When we eliminated the discussion, when we forced people to do either this way or that way, we lost as a society. The society is going to fall apart. And that's what happens all over. And then you have this Amalek, they're coming all over the place and they're taking over and they want to make Sharia law and all kind of garbage like that. And we need to, and by the way, that was the downfall of Islam as well. When Islam was an more open-minded religion in terms of like sciences and intellect and so on and so forth, Islam flourished. When Islam became radicalized, it was hijacked. Yeah, it was like by radicalism, because everybody had to prove the point that he's better than the other one. That's what we got here with this catastrophe that is now called Islam nowadays.
Iran in the 70s.
Yes. This example, not only Iran in the 70s, not only Iran in the 70s, look at all the Arab countries. Look at, for example, Egypt in the 40s, in the 30s. Until the 50s, when they had the revolution, Egypt was completely different. Egypt was a very cosmopolitan country. Alexandria was like, you should see how women used to dress. Even in Afghanistan, for crying out loud. Excuse me?
Babylon was a big place.
That's right.
Very big place.
All these places, Iraq, all these places were all very. You should have seen Syria before the revolution. Terrible. What happened to them? It's all because of that, and we should look at that and learn a lesson. But we're not looking at this. We're not learning the lesson. We're repeating the mistake. So we really need to understand that giving a chance for other people to express their opinions, and others allowing us to express our opinions, from listening, from understanding, and rooting for one another, it's not only a key to success of a society, but rather it's the key for our existence. Because if not, we all crumble. Parashat BADMIDBAR is always read before Shavuot, according to the Zohar, which was the biggest day in the history of humankind, that is receiving the Torah. Because then, at that point, from a place of complete peirut, complete separation, we reached a stage of Vayichan Sham Israel Keneged Ahar. The name Israel was a name for all the nation, as much as we call a person, let's say we call him Eitan or Shmaya or David and so on and so forth, it was called Israel. In other words, it was one harmonious entity. And that was, according to the Mekubalim, that was what caused the revelation in Mount Sinai. The unity of the people to stand there as one nation, only then God revealed himself to us. God did not reveal himself to us and then we became one. We had to become one for God to reveal himself to us. Once we understood that the goal is to reach a complete unity without losing the individualism of each and every one of us, then we were ready to stand and receive the Torah. And from that day and on, we are begging and earning and hoping that we're going to reach the same stature again. That every person, we have to remember that every person is a divine spark, unique divine spark in him, with a unique job in the world. And that counting of the people is a very important reminder to all of us, to tell us, regardless of your talents and your so-called achievement, that you by yourself are important. You are important. And there is a special place that only you could fill, and you have a special job that only you could do. And you are a part of this great order of creation. You are a part of the reason why the world was created for you. And specifically in this week's parasha, in the Midbar, the desert, the place of complete, emptiness or uncertainty, the value of each individual is being revealed. In other words, even if you are in the desert, smile. There is an internal order. there is a place, and there is a purpose. So guys, lift your head up, pick your chin up, and be proud of who you are and what you are. And let's get the job done. Shabbat Shalom and Chag Shavuot Sameach.